What's going on? What's going on? Ryan Garcia versus Cambell up this Saturday, you know. And everybody that listens to this before the new year, be safe out there, be careful. It's like sometimes this night right here ends up being real bad for people. So just be safe out there. But anyway, the two are supposed to fight on Saturday in a big fight for Ryan Garcia. It's a big, huge step up. He hasn't faced anything even close to this level of competition yet, as far as his career is concerned. But he's finally stepping up, and he's stepping up big. And this is one of those situations where he needs to look spectacular. He needs to really, put out those skills out there and show that he's on the same level as some of these other guys. Um, because we know one of the big fight that he quote supposedly wants is against Javante Tank Davis, and we all know what happens when it comes to Javante Tank Davis. How he just goes over there inside the ring and completely just decimates it, and just complete destruction is what he causes. You know, that's what he all his fights pretty much end up being, just complete destruction. I think he has knockouts in all his fights except one as well. Champion multiple times. He's a beast, so for people to believe that you have some kind of chance against him, for people to believe that you have the ability to beat him, you got to show a certain level of skills when it comes to lesser competition, and if you can't show that, then people are not going to have that faith or that belief in you. And that's going to have to happen, if they want to quote do this fight that supposedly Ryan Garcia wants, which is a fight against him and Tank Davis. You know, that's the number one thing. So who's gonna win? What I always usually say is when it comes to these really, these young fighters as they step up in competition, you never necessarily know how good they are or if they're gonna be able to handle what's in front of them until they're put into that limelight. And then you get to see sometimes they might not necessarily be what you thought they were. Then they go back, they make adjustments, they make changes, they come back, and they end up being what you thought they were going to be. Other times they go up in there and they look spectacular, and other times they go in there and they fizzle out and they burn out. But you never really know until they're actually in those situations. So we're going to have to wait and see until then to see, you know, where he stands at. You have to wait until then. But as far as, let's say, just hypothetically, he just goes in there and he handles his business. He beats the brakes off of Cambell. Let's say even stops him. What does that mean as far as when it comes to Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis? And from what I've seen, I say you really can't put you can't really put anything into what he's saying as far as I want Tank and I'm going all the way to Baltimore in order to force Tank to fight, blah, blah, blah. Certain type of things that he's been saying and his team has been saying. All these words mean absolutely nothing. When he's done, we'll see if he's serious. Because a lot of fighters, they'll have a fight coming up. They'll bring up a certain fighter's name so he can bring attention to their fights. But then after that fight's done, what we thought was going to come next never comes next. Just a couple of things. Like I've heard once him say something like, "Oh, Tank needs to understand that he's the A side and needs to take what's offered," type of thing. And it's like, Javante Tank Davis is selling out stadium after stadium after stadium. Javante Tank Davis just did 240,000 pay-per-views. He's head and heels above everyone. The only person 147 and under that's on a level above him is Manny Pacquiao and Earl Spence. That's it. 147 down, 154 down. He does bigger numbers. 160 down. Those are the only two guys that do bigger numbers than him. Period. That's it. So he's on a league all by himself, you know. But that's a big problem. Like, what exactly does that mean? Because that automatically wants you to step back and say, does he really want the fight? Is he really going to try to make this fight happen? Is he? But let's say, let's put that to the side. Another question becomes, well, Oscar De La Hoya and his fighters fight on DAZN. From what I thought, they pretty much have like an exclusive kind of deal with DAZN. So is DAZN going to allow Ryan Garcia to go fight Tank on Showtime or on Fox? Because when it comes to fighting Gervonta Tank Davis, doesn't matter who it is, everything's going to be on his terms. It's going to be in the venue that he wants. It's going to be on the network that he wants. Mayweather Promotion is going to control the entire event. Period. So the question becomes, would DAZN allow that? If they have some kind of say, will they allow that? If not, then all this talk is mute. As far as Oscar De La Hoya, I believe Oscar De La Hoya might let the fight happen just due to the fact that there's a possibility that once Ryan Garcia's contract is over, he's going to leave them and go probably sign with like Canelo or try to, because Canelo is basically his mentor and he fights at Canelo's gym. So he's going to flow, whatever way Canelo believes, Canelo believes is the right way for him to go, which would be to leave top West Coast Golden Boy. If Canelo's not on Golden Boy, I don't see how Ryan would be with Golden Boy after his contract is over. So because of that, I believe it's a situation where Golden Boy might be willing to cash him out. Let's do this big fight and make this bread. Or, get something out of it instead of just losing him for nothing later on. So that's what I personally believe. I understand that they, quote, try to make this fight mandatory for Devin Haney. That's not happening. He's not fighting. He's not fighting Devin at all. It'll be more lucrative for him to fight either Gervonta Tank Davis or to fight Teofimo Lopez. It's way more lucrative unless DAZN does something crazy and decides to say, hey, we'll give you $7-8 million to fight Devin Haney on DAZN. If DAZN is smart, they would do something like that because that's a fight that actually would be good for their network. But they'd rather spend $7 million on a Gennady Golovkin fighting somebody that nobody wants to see. That's what they'd rather do. Or spend $7 million on a Mikey Garcia who is not even connected to your network and have him fight somebody else, a Jesse Vargas on your network, and then be able to leave and go wherever else he wants to go after that. That's what they'd rather spend their money on. So, to each his own. But as far as, what his performance is going to be, we have to wait and see. And as far as what happens after that, I'm not going to necessarily believe anybody in what they say before this fight. After it's over, then we'll see what kind of moves they make. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.